You can still get your life back. Get your life back. It's real. Get your life back. Get your life back.
But I felt that it was good to talk about because I've been in discussion this week with several people about emotional health, trauma bonding, emotional maturity, and being an empath, all of those terms, empathic communication. And I talked about it in the spiritual and in the natural. In the spiritual, as far as looking at the example of Christ and how he interacted with people, and how the Bible says he was moved by the spirit of compassion and he was empathic. That's how he was the high priest who was touched and moved by the feeling of our infirmities, that he wanted to help us. And so because he sat around the people who needed him most, he was able to have compassion and understand their struggle, their suffering. And that's why he came. In the natural, just learning how to connect with people. When we are emotionally healthy, we have a good level of emotional regulation, where we're able to cope with situations, we're able to process things, we're not reactive, we're not impulsive. Being reactive and impulsive and your behavior sometimes, if you're emotional immature, you possess all of those symptoms, as well as, what is the word I'm looking for? It's a negative way to respond to situations, and it's disproportionate. And sometimes it's like childlike behavior. A lot of times you can see where a person's trauma might have occurred at a certain age, because when they're faced with a certain situation that they're not able to cope with, you see that 13, that 15, that 16, and that 18-year-old response. Because a lot of times if we have trauma at a certain age, when things happen, like I said, and you're triggered, that state, that same age that you have the trauma is what shows. It's what's manifested, what's displayed. And so we just need to, my main thing for this podcast segment is to encourage you to work on yourself emotionally. Being purposeful and intentional about growing. This is self-care as well. Mental health, self-care, self-love. Focus on being healthy emotionally, because when you're not, it would definitely show in your relationships. It will show at work. It will show in a lot of other areas of your life, and people can see it. It permeates out of your spirit. And sometimes you may not understand why people may react to you a certain way, because they can see the emotional immaturity that you display, that you behave in. And so I want us to focus on that this month, period. But I'm saying, because May is the month for mental health awareness and for remembering it, recognizing it, becoming self-aware. One of the things about being emotional healthy is self-awareness. So start with being self-aware where you are emotionally. If you have gone through some kind of experience, some kind of traumatic events, pay attention to what you're feeling and how it's affecting you. And this is how you learn to become emotionally aware of yourself. And that's the best thing to do first, before somebody else pick it up. You are aware. This way you can, start working on managing those emotions. If you need to go see a therapist or a trauma focused coach like me, or someone to kind of help you manage those emotions. Maybe you're a pastor or minister who is trained in pastoral counseling or mental health counseling or coaching. Get the help you need. Now, sometimes we can be in a good environment or around a community of people who are emotionally healthy, and we can learn from the people that we are around and surrounded by, watching the way they respond and they react and they interact, and the way they cope with situations and the way they process things, and how there's some people in our life, most of us can probably point out that person who seems to kind of be even tempered. They don't react right away to things. They're not explosive. They know how to think about something and to ponder on it for a moment. If they need to take a walk, if they need to say, you know what, right now I'm upset, learning how to express yourself, being able to articulate your emotions in a emotionally regulated state, where you're not screaming and yelling and hitting the wall, slapping the cat, beating your loved one, that kind of response. When you're emotionally dysregulated is what causes you to do that. So yes, anger management is very important for you to grab a hold of managing your emotions and learning how to communicate from a regulated state. And so that's what coping strategies come into play. Utilizing, you can go and Google any kind of coping strategies like deep breathing, taking a walk, self-talk, therapy, knowing where you are, like I said, emotionally, paying attention, taking a break, going somewhere and really thinking about what just happened, processing it and questioning yourself, using Socratic questioning. You know, is it that deep? Was it that serious? Why did I respond that way? That's that self-introspection that you need to do. We all need to do that. But I know this is for somebody who needs to practice this a little bit more in their life. And I guarantee you will see a change in your relationships. You'll form more healthier relationships because you are self-aware, number one, and you know how to manage your emotions enough where you can think about it rationally. You can think about a situation rationally and reasonably. And when you're able to do that from a calm state, from a calm nervous system, right? Because you're coping with it, you're not dysregulated, you're able to manage your emotions, which means you are controlling the way your brain is behaving and is functioning, because we know that the brain sends signals to the body. So if you can manage those emotions and those thoughts and that mindset you have, then you take control. You have the power to take control of the way your emotions are leading you. Because a lot of times some people are really moved by the emotions. They allow the emotion to dictate their behavior, which can cause a terrible outcome if it's a negative emotion. You understand? So paying attention to that is so powerful in itself. It is the first step. Self-awareness is the first step. Once you know how to manage those emotions and that mindset, you learn how to redirect your thoughts. You don't ruminate over the same thing over and over again. Let it play like a record that's scratched over and over and over again. So now what happens is when you continue to do that, it's going to trigger something inside of you. And sometimes it can trigger a trauma because, you know, our cellular system has a DNA, and inside the DNA, there's a memory, there's cellular memory. And so that's why a lot of times if we triggered a certain way, because a lot of times we throw that word around, trigger. There's a lot of words getting thrown around now, people using it out of context. But anyway, you can re-trigger and go through a re-traumatizing situation. If somebody does something or say something, the reason why it affects you in a negative way, because that, again, your cellular system has a memory and it remembers a particular sound or an event, or it could be an aroma of something. Maybe you had an abuser or abusive relationship you was in, and that person wore a certain type of cologne. And so anytime you smell it now with somebody else, it reminds you of that negative experience you had because the memory is still there. And sometimes this is how you can tell you're healed. If you don't have the same effect you had as when you actually went through it, you recognize it, but you're not feeling those same negative emotions in your body where maybe your stomach hurt or your head start to hurt, or there's a lot of different symptoms that we all experience when we're feeling traumatized or angry or stressed. Maybe your hand gets hot or your head gets hot or you get a headache. Some people say they start shaking and trembling, or maybe your stomach gets upset. However you react to when you're in a stressful situation, pay attention to that. But a lot of times that will happen when somebody kind of trigger that memory, that negative memory you have in your system. And that's when you utilize the coping skills, whether it's walking away, doing something to invoke the opposite emotion of what you're actually feeling at the moment. So if you're feeling stressed, engage in an activity that causes you to feel less stress, or it would de-stress how you're feeling. It's like you're tricking the brain, those thoughts, you're redirecting them. You are taking control over your emotions. You are redirecting that thought. You are breaking up those negative thought patterns in your mind. So this is helping you to become empowered. You have the ability to become empowered. A lot of times people, we don't learn it a lot of times growing up, right? We feel we always got to run to somebody else and become codependent and rely on other people to make you feel good and make you feel happy. That is unhealthy and dysfunctional because people are going to disappoint you. We are all human. We're not always going to be on our A game. We're not going to be happy-go-lucky every day. And if you're depending on another individual to make you happy, that's the first place you need to start at. That is not healthy. And so I want you to focus on, again, emotional health, emotional growth, emotional maturity. Means you have appropriate behavior and appropriate responses to situations, as opposed to a childlike response or impulsive response or reactive and explosive response to a situation, right? It's more of a natural or a common response to, stressful situations. And so do your homework and do some things, but I do want to read a little bit about trauma bonding. And most of us know that a lot of times trauma bonding is a dysfunctional relationship. There's usually a person who asserts a certain power over another individual. And usually the person who is the victim have an unhealthy attachment to the abuser, to the person. An abusive person don't have to necessarily be a person who is physically abusive. They can be emotionally abusive, financially abusive. That means controlling all the finances. Say you're married to someone who's controlling all the finances and they're the main breadwinner and they don't allow you to, have money. It just have a certain constraint over you. And a lot of times you can have, if you have a situation where you're battling low self-esteem and self-love and self-worth issues, a lot of times you will have an unhealthy attachment to this person who has a power over you. And it's hard for you to get out of that relationship. That's a form of trauma bonding. You are bonded, you are attached to this person in this relationship. And so you have to start with empowering yourself, loving yourself. Then when you start to love yourself, you start to care for yourself. You start to practice the self-care. And then you find things to do or activities that can help you actually, interventions and coping skills, whether it's going to therapy or anything else, to kind of help you build yourself up where you have enough power to walk away from the relationship because it's not healthy. A lot of times when you're in these attachment relationship, you stop making excuses for that person that has kind of rule over you. They have kind of taken them, or you have given them your power, right? Because you lost your sense of self. And you may have went into the relationship not having a healthy level of self-love and self-esteem. And that's why you may have attracted this person. Sometimes these people who are abusive are looking for victims. They targeting people because they have insecurities and low self-esteem as well. Most of the time, that is what they battle with. So they find somebody else, who they can lord over. And if you are battling with the same thing, but you don't know your self-worth and empowerment that you have, you end up in these type of relationships and they know how to control you. It becomes controlling. They want to know your every move and you stop making excuses for them and irrational thinking and all these things start to happen. That's when you know, okay, this is definitely unhealthy. And then when you come to yourself, then you try to find plan a way of escape. And I'm telling you, as a pastoral counselor, I'm here to tell you that God will make a way of escape. When you decide to cry on him, cry to God, ask for help, ask for strength, ask God to build you up. He will do that. He will give you the power that you need. Stand on his word, read the scripture, and reach out to people, reach out to groups. It could be on Facebook, it could be on social media, it could be in your community. Find a group that will help you become empowered, to be around like-minded people, because they can have resources for you that can help you get out this relationship. And not only that, they'll become your support system, which is powerful within itself. So that's all I really wanted to say. I didn't want to stay on here long. If you have any comments, let me see if there's anything in the comment section. I heard something, I don't even know where it came from, but I would like to know if you can identify with this kind of situation or a trauma bonding type of relationship, dysfunctional relationships, or if you're the type of person who usually make decisions based on your emotions, how you're feeling, what your mood is like, because a lot of times that's what gets us into trouble. When we make emotional decisions, we're not rational, we're not reasonable, we're not thinking clearly. And so, and because of, like I said, that inner stuff, like self-esteem issues and self-love issues, that you're lacking, it'll cause you to constantly be in this cycle of dysfunction. And then you have these dysfunctional cycles, relationships over and over again. You keep attracting the same type of people. Let me tell you something. A lot of times when that happens, you end up attracting that same spirit, but in a different form. Where one person may be say a professional person, another person can be from another situation or income bracket or whatever the case is. They can come in a different form. And a lot of times when a lot of people caught up in a trauma bonding relationship is that sometimes if you feel that lack of self-love, this other person that you're meeting, the person that you're in a relationship with, they start showering you with love, what we think is love, right? Sometimes it can be in a form of just giving you so many gifts and making you feel like you're the best thing, that's better than anything else. And so you get caught up in that. And so what happened when you get caught up in all of that euphoria, that newlywed, no, not newlywed, I'm sorry, that honeymoon state, that honeymoon period when you're releasing those endorphins because the person is making you feel good. So they're releasing those endorphins, those chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin. And we know when those hormones start to, increase in our body, in our brain first, and then express to our body, we start to feel good. A lot of times we misinterpret that feeling for being in love with somebody. This, oh my God, he just loved me so much. I'm just feeling so great. But you don't stay with them long enough sometimes. Well, no, what happens is it takes a while in many cases where you see the other dysfunctional behavior. You see the irrational person, you see the abusive person, you see the controlling person because they got you where they want. Now, some people don't even know that they're exerting this type of behavior, right? They're used to dysfunctional relationships as well. So they think it's normal. And you may think this is normal because maybe you grew up around that. Maybe your environment, that's the type of relationship that you saw. And so you don't even realize that it's an unhealthy attachment or that you're really not in love. Maybe you're infatuated or you're loving the way you're feeling right now. And you're experiencing, again, the release of those endorphins, the release of that oxytocin, and just you're drunk in it. And in psychology, we call it a drunken brain, an intoxicated brain, right? Because it's full of all those chemicals just all over. And so it can trick you if you're not using your right mind, the logic mind, the sensible mind, right? You're not allowing your emotions to dictate your behavior. You're thinking about things, you're watching. You want to see some fruit. You want to see healthy fruit in that individual. They're treating you appropriate, respecting you. The way they're nurturing, they care about you, and it's consistent. When you see that over time, I'm not talking about weeks. People know how to play the game. People are very smart. And so you need to see months. You maybe need to see a year or 2 years go by in a relationship you're building with somebody to see how consistent that person is. Watch them in other surroundings and other environments. When you bring that person around your friends and your family and see if there's a difference. And be discerning. Again, that's got to give you some wisdom and some discernment because he surely will do that. Because you want to break this thing. Some of you, it's time for you to break this cycle. Because you want to be healthy, you want to be whole, you want to know what it feels like to be in a healthy relationship where somebody really cares and they care about your spirit, they care about your emotions, they're concerned about you, they care about your heart. And when a person really is connected to you like one, where either you're married or you want to get married, they can pick you up emotionally and in the spirit. They're sensitive to your needs and to your feelings and to your desires. And when that person really becomes one with you, the reason why they care about you so much, because they understand that you connected as one really in the spirit. And so whatever's affecting you is going to affect them. And so they set a goal to try to make sure the whole relationship is functioning in a healthy way, that you're good, they're good. And they're concerned about how you're doing. And I usually tell couples, I believe in having like these progress sessions, maybe quarterly, maybe every 6 months, where you get together and check in on each other. How you doing? How's your heart? Is there something that's been on your mind that we need to talk about? Let's get it out. Let's put it all on the table. So we're not even giving not only the enemy place to come in and bring division and dissension and discord. We nipping this thing in the bud, whatever it is, because we don't want it to grow. And we don't want to allow any outside people to come in and start speaking stuff, because we are practicing how to be emotional regulated, how to check in on each other, how to practice self-care within a relationship, self-love within a relationship, healthy bonding, healthy attachment style, method. So I'm really done now. I hope this was helpful for somebody. Get the meat, spit out the bones. But I wanted to make sure that I talk about something related to mental health, like I usually do in a lot of my videos. You will see. And if you are not a subscriber, hit that bell, hit the bell, so you can get notifications every time a new video uploads on my channel. Also, like these videos and subscribe so it can reach more people, so YouTube can show it to more people, because it's going to help somebody. Share it with somebody as well. That's another way to reach people, especially during this time. Some of us may know somebody who's going through something right now. They're going through maybe depression or sadness. You know, we're going through a lot of trauma in this country with this whole shooting thing in Buffalo, and it's just a lot of stuff going on. We're still dealing with the COVID-19. We're losing people, not only from COVID still, but we also losing people in the midst of everything else from other causes. And so we have to be, again, emotionally self-aware of what we are experiencing, trauma after trauma. And it's like right after another consecutively. That's not healthy. That's not even normal. Even though there's a lot of people in a lot of countries where they see things, they see trauma every day. They see shooting and hearing gunshots every day. And you stay in a constant hypervigilant state, or always walking around with this fear and anxiety, because this is the situation you live in. It's unhealthy. Again, being self-aware. That's emotional maturity. That's emotional growth. Paying attention to what you're feeling and then other people around you as well. All right. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day or evening or morning, because I don't know where you're tuning in from. So I just want to acknowledge all of the time zones and everybody that, tuned in. And I hope that this was very helpful to you and somebody else, whoever you're going to share it with. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again. And I like to see your comment as well. And I like to go back in, because I do read the comments, go back and read them and try to respond to them as well. And if you have questions that you would like me to answer, things that come to your mind as it pertains to my channel, go and see what I'm about as a life purpose coach, a mental health professional, a pastoral counselor, a speaker, and an author. And I love to talk about finding your life purpose, healing over things and over barriers that's keeping you from living your best life, keeping you from growing and thriving in life, because I believe God wants the best for you. And he have wonderful and great things for you. But we need to know that. We need to find that out. And so that's what I'm all about, helping you break through barriers so you can propel into your purpose. Good evening, everybody.
Get your life back. Get your life back.